Good morning. Welcome to free practice 2 for the 10th round of the ABB FIA Formula E World Championship. And we are on the streets of New York City once again. This, the ABB New York City E-Prix. My name is Jack Nichols. Alongside me in commentary is Nikki Shields. We've got Dario Franchitti and Amanda Busick down in the pit lane as well. And Nikki, we've already seen the first practice session. Robin Freitz was quickest, and the drivers will have learned a lot since they arrived earlier on this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. They would have learned a lot, but of course the practice session was cut short, so they missed out on a crucial 15 minutes of that. The important thing is now that they just need to learn the nuances of every corner. There's Sam Bird, who was looking pretty happy this morning, until of course it all went a little bit wrong for him in the first practice session, and he ended with his car in the wall. But yeah, this is a really important session where they need to just get to grips with the circuit and also practice their quali lap.
And this is the way that the championship standings are coming into this race, and it is going to be Eduardo Mortara who's at the top of the standings, 10 points clear of the rest of the pack, and that's going to be the tough thing for this chasing pack, is to gain that many points this weekend when they're in Group 1 for qualifying.
True, but then so many points up for grabs. You know, it's a double header. We get to race twice here this weekend. It's so tight in between second and sixth, just 3 points between them.
There you can see some of the drivers lower down in the standings. Tom 5 points down at the bottom, and you've got Lucas de Grassi 13th. Nick Cassidy got his first podium. He's got up into 14th position. And, well, it's even tighter in the team standings, isn't it? The battle's just going to go on and on for the rest of the year. It
is. It's probably the most exciting season and most competitive season we have had to date. 14 points there, splitting Mercedes, DS Techeetah, Jaguar Racing, Audi Sports and Envision Virgin Racing. But look at Neo down there, only 18 points so far this season.
Dario Franchitti, this is the circuit that we're racing on in Brooklyn.
There we are, 2.3 kilometers, 14 turns, and it's definitely tight, twisty and bumpy. Big wide braking zone into turn 1, straight into 2, 3, 4. Got to get a good exit out of 4 though, because it's a long straight down to the heavy braking zone of turn 6. Turn 6 and 7 immediately follow each other, curving through 8, try and get the car straight for 9. Big surface changes there. Tight hairpin in 10, attack mode activation on the outside. 12 and 13, lovely chicane, and then a long, fast turn 14 that caught Sam Bird out this morning, and then it's the run to the finish line. Very, very different Puebla. Great track, great skyline, and yeah, it's going to be a good race today.
Yeah, it certainly is. No volcanoes overlooking us here, just Lady Liberty as she is over the other side of the East River. Track temperature 30 degrees, air temperature 24 degrees at the moment. A little bit crisper after the overnight storms, but you can still see the clouds not looking particularly friendly at the moment. Not the sort of clear blue sky that we're used to in New York City. But the big news really after the first free practice session was the accident for Sam Bird. He went into the wall at Clinton Wharf on the exit of turn 14, and it's going to have to be almost a total rebuild, Dario. He didn't look like he'd done a huge amount of damage to the car, but they're having to change the chassis.
Yeah, absolutely. The effect of a very small mistake by Sam, a mistake of millimeters, really, and that.
That's the result. Sam Bird in the barrier and out of the running, and he's going to miss this second part of practice, but they're on a race against time now to get it ready even for qualifying, Nikki.
Look at them. I mean, working so tirelessly hard. I mean, these guys are the best in the business. If they're going to get this car ready in time, then they will. But working really hard. And it's just really difficult because there's nothing else you can do. That's what's so hard with this one race day format.
So, green flag for free practice 2, and everybody makes their way out. It was the same for everyone, getting that 15-minute shortened running at the end of the first practice session. So no one's going to get particularly advantaged or disadvantaged by that. Obviously, Sam Bird is the driver with the biggest disadvantage, but the biggest thing people are saying is how dirty and dusty the track is at the moment, and you can see it here as they pour out of the pits.
Yeah, I feel like, have we ever seen that much dust and dirt? You know, there's proper dust clouds going up as they're exiting the pit lane there. I'm trying to think if we've actually seen that before.
One engineer that I spoke to said it's not as bad as Punta del Este in terms of track dirt and evolution because that was on the beach.
Yes, we were literally adjacent to the beach, but about 20 meters away. So no wonder that wasn't really dust, that was sand.
Yeah, exactly. But not ideal conditions for the circuit then, let's put it that way, as the cars make their way around trying to clear up some of that dirt. And the Mercedes is at the front of the queue, or near the front of the queue anyway. That is Stoffel van Dorn, I think, coming down into the left-hander of turn 9. They then come up into the Manhattan hairpin. We saw Oliver Rowland, you might have noticed him just pulling to the side earlier on, and that's because he didn't want to be the first out on track. So he pulled to the side to let everybody through because he didn't want to be on the dirty part of the circuit, Oliver Rowland. So that's the reason that the British driver did that, which is fairly sensible. And I think that, Dario, is going to be something that there'll be a lot of fights about in Group 1. Because if you remember, I think Group 1 here in Season 5 was the first time we really saw that kind of Group 1 elbows out qualifying, I don't want to be first on track fight.
Yeah, the qualifying race as it was in Puebla. Yeah. There was even contact, which is just incredible. But you're talking about the dust and everything. There's nowhere for it to go. You've got the walls on either side of the circuit, so the dust goes up, back down, and then it starts to come back onto the racing line. So it's a real challenge for the teams, and obviously with the track sitting idle between the end of free practice 2 and qualifying, that's why Group 1 is so bad.
Here is Nick de Vries then. Purple Sector 1, but he's the first driver through Sector 1 as we go on board with the Mercedes EQ driver. Down into the left-hander of turn 9, then into the Manhattan hairpin here. Over to the left of the circuit and then swing it into the right. You can see plenty of tarmac on the road after some lockups already. That's where attack mode is activated as well. As he now comes into and another little lockup there for de Vries. As we go back on board with him now into the chicane and then out through Clinton Wharf. This is where Bird hit the inside wall there, and that's what sent him into the outside wall earlier on. But immediately de Vries putting in a 1:10.7, which is only half a second slower than Robin Freitz managed earlier. Spoke to Robin and I said, oh, were you happy with that lap? You're on attack mode. He said, no, I was on normal power, 200 kilowatts, and I had a load of traffic, and it wasn't a very good lap. So I think, Dario, there's a lot more lap time to come, probably in this session.
Oh, absolutely right, and the track evolution is going to be big as well. Drivers get more and more brave with the corners as well. As you see, Nick Cassidy, this is going to be a bit of a shock for him. You know, this is like nothing he will really have ever seen. And he's done a lot of racing, especially in Japan. But the rhythm, the flow of the circuit will be very difficult for him to get into with other guys who've got years of experience around him.
Yeah, lots of experience, and of course that's what you need to put into practice during this session, because you get the opportunity to practice that quali lap. You know, the race mode is on 200 kilowatts, but your quali mode is at 250, so that's a massive increase in power, and obviously the car handles hugely different. And this is a track where, you know, you can see just how narrow it is. There is a huge risk and return, particularly at this New York track. You know, in Puebla we saw a lot of the cars coming off, but there was runoff area. You know, it wasn't such a traditional street circuit, whereas this has all the ingredients of a traditional street circuit. And, you know, well, we saw Sam Bird this morning getting caught out. So it's going to be an interesting one for Nick Cassidy.
This is what we're here for, isn't it? This real street circuit stuff. This is what Formula E is all about. And after this, we go to London in a couple of weeks' time, which is going to be a unique venue. Here's a replay of Jean-Eric Verne at turn 1, and he has spun it around as well. Not a dissimilar spin in its sort of oddity, Dario, to Da Costa's in free practice 1 earlier. Yeah,
it looks like Jean-Eric just hit the inside curb, and that started the spin for him. And that was it. Just watch as he's just caught too much curb, wheels off the ground, no grip, and there we go.
We heard on the radio earlier in free practice 1, I can't remember who it was. Oh no, it was Lotter, wasn't it? Walking back down the pit lane, and he said, the track is so dirty that you've actually got such a narrow line, haven't you? You know, it's almost like a drying line on a wet track sometimes, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes the margin for error even smaller. And you saw Sam Bird standing in the Jaguar garage. They've actually got the car pretty close to being ready, but there was a bit of a delay putting the battery into the back of the Jaguar. So great work from everybody in the Jaguar team.
Wow, nearly ready for a few packs. That's quite remarkable. There's Antonio Felix da Costa, followed by Lucas de Grassi as they come through the chicane, the left and right, and then down towards, well, one of two. It's less of a chicane than the actual chicane, isn't it, really? It's a left at 6 and a right at 7, then down to this left at turn 9, and heading out towards the Atlantic Ocean before doing a hard right and heading back down towards the Brooklyn Ferry Terminal. Van Dorn is quickest at the moment on a 1 minute 10.124, which is quicker than we've seen so far this morning. I think that was set in attack mode that time from Van Dorn. 4,000ths quicker than Eduardo Mortara, but we are not seeing any absolutely flying qualifying mode laps just yet as da Costa flashes through the final corner at Clinton Wharf, down towards turn 1 and the dock loop again. Oh, bit of a lock up there. I think he got it in, and he's being followed by Lucas de Grassi. And you had a nice chat with Lucas yesterday, I thought, Dario. I've only seen the little 3 minutes that will play out later in the show this afternoon, but a really thoughtful and interesting guy, and so interesting to hear him say, this is it, I'm racing cars for the rest of my life now.
Yeah, it was a really interesting chat, Jack. You know, we normally see the drivers that are sort of high alert, they're in the race mode, they're thinking about driving a racing car. Yesterday we sat by the Buttermilk Channel there and we had a chat. It lasted for a lot longer than 3 minutes, and I just thought at the end of it, I thought, Lucas definitely thinks a lot more deeply than other drivers about all kinds of things outside racing. Fascinating character. Obviously great racing driver, but fascinating character. And I really am interested to see where his life takes him outside the car, as well as his future in Formula E next season and beyond.
Well, that's the thing. I never know. You know, how does he fit all of this in? So not only does he go to all of these races and has to obviously do a lot of sim time in between the preparation for, but he's also he's involved in Robo Race. He's involved in an electric bike company. He's a clean air ambassador for the UN. The work just doesn't stop. He's an extremely smart guy away from the racing track, and yeah, his work never stops. And it's really interesting because, of course, his journey with Formula E started at the very beginning. I think he was one of the first 6 employees of Formula E and really helped Alejandro Agag, you know, develop the car, test the car, and get the championship off the ground. A real inspiration, I think, in the world of electric motorsport, and helping to change our the way the world works with electric motorsport.
I think people must think the same about you, though, Nikki. How does she have time for all of this stuff? You follow Nikki on social media, and you got a lot. How has she got time for that as well?
Oh, I thought you were going to say about how clever I was.
Oh yeah, and your great humanitarian work.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I do drive my electric car. I do. I am currently holding my reusable water bottle.
Oh really?
Well, it's just there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Look at that.
We need a comms camera. I'll take a photo and put it on Instagram.
There's a shock. 21 minutes on the clock. And that's Norman Nato we're looking at here in the Venturi. Now, had a few flashes, Norman Nato, this year, most notably in Valencia Season 2, but struggled, or has struggled really, to get up to speed, maybe more than any rookie, Norman Nato, because in the last race in Puebla, he was in Group 4, which in theory should have been a reasonable place to be, but didn't qualify inside the top 10 in either race, didn't score any points in either race. Meanwhile, his teammate Eduardo Mortara finished 3rd and 2nd, so it's got to be tough in that scenario, I think, to look across the garage and see Edo at the top of the championship and Nato 23rd with only 1 points finished this season.
Yeah, polar opposites, aren't they, at the moment? Things just haven't really come together for him this season. Edo Mortara, though, he's got a huge amount of experience in Formula E now. He's been involved for what is this will be his 4th season with the team, and is clearly doing really well. I think the communication between Mortara and the team has also really clicked this season, hence why we've seen some fantastic results from him in Puebla. Also finished 4th in Rome. But Norman Nato, I think, is probably looking across to the other side of the garage thinking, well, hang on a minute, what am I doing wrong here when Edo's getting so much performance out of the car?
Hashtag NYC E-Prix if you want to get in touch. Topher Smith says, speaking of how intelligent Lucas de Grassi is, he's also a member of Mensa.
I know, he is unbelievably smart. Whenever, I mean,
I'm not smart enough to know what Mensa is.
Considering, I reckon I've probably interviewed him 500 times over the last 7 years. And yes, he always makes me feel pretty, I don't want to use the word stupid, but that's the first word. mind. He's a really smart guy. I think he called his son Leo after Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh. Not DiCaprio.
No.
There is Lucas de Grassi, sitting at the wheel of his number 11 Audi Sport App Schaeffler machine. Van Dorn's time of a 1 minute 10.124, still the quickest at the moment as we look at the run down Bound Street into the left-hander of turn 6. Alexander Sims locking up, just snatching the left front as he weaves through the left and right. Interesting year for Mahindra, Dario, because both Sims and Lynn have had podiums and qualified well and been in Super Pole, but overall, the two drivers are sort of 15th and 16th in the standings. Mahindra are 8th in the standings, which isn't... Oh, and there's a spin. So I'm facing the wrong way. I think that was the Dragon, wasn't it? But, yeah, it was Sergio Sette-Camera, I believe. But, yeah, Mahindra, it's been an interesting year for them. Dario.
Yeah, I think it has. I think the pace, as we hear Lynn's radio...
Yeah, they finally come back together, but it's still pretty hard for the first lap.
Come back together, but it's fine for the first lap. I think he's talking about the brakes there. He's
either talking about brakes or the way the tyres come in, because you want the front and the rear tyres to come in at the correct rate so the balance stays in the car. But yeah, it's been interesting. Yeah, the qualifying pace of the car is good, and I think Alexander Lynn in particular has really taken advantage of that and had some very good performances there. But the race pace still needs work, and that man there, Dilbag Gill, will be pushing his team to keep improving that. I understand the big boss, Mr. Mahindra himself, is coming to the race this weekend, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is good.
So it's really time to impress them. But, you know, let's not forget, Mahindra, 2 new drivers this season. Alexander Sims and Alex Lynn. So that's a big change for the team. Not just having 1 driver, but 2 drivers. And I do think they've settled in really well. They've got a great relationship between each other and also with the team. And I do love Alexander Sims. I think he likes to class himself as a bit of a geek, but he's got a brilliant sense of humour. And quite level-headed, I would say. Maybe not that emotional when it comes to the highs and lows. Even on a podium, I don't think he smiled, did he? But we'll see how he can do and impress the boss this weekend then. I mean, Mahindra 8th in the championship at the moment.
Buemi up into 3rd place. We did that lap time a few laps ago now. He's back in the pits, but reasonable from Buemi. In fact, the top 4 are all separated by less than 1/10 of a second, so that's how tight it is at the moment, before a little bit of a gap back to Max Günther. There is Robin Freitz, who was quickest in free practice 1, and this now is on board with Pascal Wehrlein, who, well, 12th in the championship, and won on the road, didn't he, last time out in... Had 2 podium finishes last time out, to be honest, but got disqualified from race 1 for not submitting the right tyre choice for the race, and then a penalty in race 2 for not using his fan boost correctly, and as a result, it wasn't the haul of points that Porsche really should have taken. And I think what impressed me most, Dario, was that we've so often seen Wehrlein qualify at the front and then slip back to 5th or 6th in the race, but they seem to work out, or, you know, crack the code of how to properly stay at the front in Puebla.
Set about it, but
lost Dario there for the moment. But Nikki, you can answer that one then.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, Pascal Wehrlein, he's 26 years old. I thought he was extremely mature. Well, just generally, he is a very mature driver. But, you know, considering he'd put in the performance of his life, bringing home Porsche's first ever win, and to be told that news, I thought he managed it really maturely. I think particularly on the second day in the race. I mean, he was told he was given that 5-second penalty literally about 20 seconds before we were about to do an interview. And many of the drivers, not naming any names, would have sort of flown off the handle, got really emotional and stressed and probably stormed off. But he kind of took it all in his stride and just sort of said, well, it is what it is. We're going to crack on. We know that the car's got the performance now, and kind of left it at that, which I thought was really mature of him.
On board here with Nick de Vries, who's trying to get past one of the Porsches. As he comes up into the right-hander, and the Porsche moves out of the way, goes through attack mode. and then goes back through in the end. And De Vries then going past the Neo on the right-hand side. If you go on YouTube and look at the best of team radio on the Formula E YouTube page from Puebla, there's a really amazing interaction between Kyle Wilson-Clark, his race engineer, and Wehrlein when it comes to being told what is going on. Because initially they were like, build a gap, we need 5 seconds. He's saying why, and then they cross the line to win, and he has to say, sorry, Pascal, you know, been disqualified. So that's really, really worth seeing. 14 minutes on the clock. Van Dorn still quickest, ahead of Mortara, Buemi and Freitz. And this is Lucas de Grassi, who's done the fastest first sector of anyone. He's in attack mode at the moment, Lucas de Grassi, half a tenth up. His middle sector split is after this hairpin right-hander at turn 10. It's following Norman Nato at the moment. What's de Grassi got after the middle sector? The Brazilian is up by more than a tenth. So good lapping coming from the Audi driver. Through the chicane, out into Clinton Wharf. The long left-hander, giving it plenty of leeway on the apex, and de Grassi comes across the line here and goes quickest.
Keep pushing Lucas for one more lap without cool down lap, purple sector 1 and 2.
So de Grassi being told, keep pushing on this lap without a cool down lap, which is interesting. He's still in, no, he's out of attack mode now as well.
I think it's quite funny having, obviously, we were saying that René Rast is heavily into the data. I think all of a sudden this season, obviously Lucas de Grassi's been watching the performance of René Rast, and now suddenly Lucas is a lot more into the data, whereas before he hadn't taken a huge amount of notice, was just sort of, you know, did what his race engineers told him to do, and communicates any feedback back. But now he is also analysing the data, maybe not quite to the same extent that René Rast is doing.
Oh, lock up there. Who was that? John-Eric Verne going straight on down at turn 6. And he's now trying to reverse back onto the track. Yellow flag's out down at that left-hander, and Verne has recovered. Nothing too dramatic for the driver who clinched both of his Formula E championships here. His teammate Da Costa goes up into 5th place on an attack mode lap and gets going again.
But what a different story for him, as you say. You know, this is a place where it brings back so many good memories, plenty of celebrations, taking those... oh, let's take a look what happened.
Just went in a bit too hot, Dario, I think.
Odd one for Jean-Eric. It just started to... It was like it didn't really lock up massively, did it? That's probably the systems on the back end of the car, and the back axle with the brake-by-wire system not working properly with the front. But yeah, locked up and took his time reversing back on the track, which is obviously the sensible thing to do.
Here's Sebastian Buemi, who is on a full power lap at the moment. He's almost 4 tenths up on de Grassi, so this is going to be our first benchmark time. He's gone fairly early on this session. He's the first driver to go full power through the final corner. The Nissan driver does a 1 minute 9.386. So that is the fastest lap time of the session so far, of the day so far. And that puts him half a second clear of de Grassi. So that's the benchmark laid down by Buemi. And no one else looks like they're even thinking about starting up yet then. But I guess Buemi wants to get some running in, really, because they changed all of his parts in Puebla, all of the car's parts in Puebla, in order to try and solve the problem he's been having. Because, Dario, that Buemi-Roland fight is interesting, because Roland came in, they were quite even. But this year, either Roland stepped forward or Buemi's dropped back. It's quite curious.
Yeah, something just has not clicked with Sebastian Buemi this year. So good for the Nissan team for changing all the parts and just like say, okay, let's figure out what is going on here. Because Sebastian Buemi, I mean, he's a qualifying machine in Formula E, past champion. So they need to figure out what's been going on and get everything working again. Because as you say, Oliver Rowland has done a very good job this season. So yeah, it's Buemi needs to figure things out pretty quickly because the season's over, halfway done.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they were kind of on the back foot, weren't they, Nissan Edams? Because, of course, they didn't have their new powertrain until midpoint of this season, which really slowed things down for them. But Buemi, I mean, he's the king of qualifying here in New York. 3 pole positions. He actually missed out on the Season 3 racing here because he had other commitments with the World Endurance Championship. So he's only raced here 4 times before, and he was pole position 3 times. He's also been on the podium 3 times, including a win. So if there is a race where Buemi can impress at, this has got to be the one.
So 9 minutes to go, and that lap from Buemi is quicker than anyone has ever been in New York City before. So even on this horrible, dusty, dirty track on the first day of running, it is 2 tenths quicker than Alexander Sims managed in New York last year. So that is shows the development, and you'd expect that, of course, because this is the 3rd season now. We're 2 years on from where we were before, so it's unsurprising to see that the pace has increased as Alex Lynn comes down the back straight of Bound Street. He's got one of the Porsches up behind him. Sergio City camera across the line to go 14th quickest, and Van Dorn is on an out lap now as René Rast waits to head out onto the circuit. 8 minutes to go in the session. Buemi, the only driver to have done a full power flying lap at the moment. Max Günther's just coming through the first sector and is only 100th away from Buemi, and this is the German driver now in the BMW I Andretti team on a full power run down towards turn 9. He's been such a good qualifier, Dario, has Max Günther this year.
Yeah, absolutely. He's done a great job in qualifying, but it just hasn't happened in the races. I mean, he's 18th in points, 3 DNFs, so yeah, things have definitely got to pick up in race pace. You see the big boss, Michael Andretti, is here this weekend, so he's going to want to impress Michael, and you have to say that Jake Dennis, his teammate, rookie teammate, has done a fabulous job to really impress the team this year, winning in Valencia too.
Big slide through the final corner from Günther, comes across the line, and he goes 2nd quickest, 300ths slower than Buemi. Then a bit of a lock him into turn 1, so he was about a 10th slower in sector 2, a 10th quicker in sector 3, and that netted out to being 300ths slower overall. So Buemi and Günther, the 2 drivers at the top of the times that have done a full power run. And here's a look at Günther again, coming through Clinton Wharf, the final corner. Look how close! He really aggressively angles that car in, doesn't he, Dario?
Yeah, he really put some yaw into the car, didn't he? Almost looked like he was going to hit the inside wall, as Sam Bird did this morning, but then he got a nice controlled slide through there, and that was lovely to watch. I love turn 14, but I have to say, I thought that was a great job by Max Günther. Full marks, full style marks to him for that one.
Yeah, exactly, if nothing else. Lotterer on track now in the Porsche, coming through the dock loop at turns 2, 3 and 4, and then out onto Bound Street. Lotterer looking to recover his kind of qualifying form.
Yeah, and you know, again, talking about sort of 2 extremes in a team. You know, Andre Lotterer, again, we just haven't seen the same kind of performance that we've seen from Pascal Wehrlein this season. He has had a few moments where a podium has been in reach, but, you know, maybe taking the wrong decisions, pushing a bit too hard, that's taken him out of contention.
Collisions as well. You think of Rome, collision with...
Seems to always be
Van Dorn, yeah. Put Alexander Sims in the wall, didn't he, in the last race, and he's got traffic here. Bad traffic, that, for Lotterer. Wasn't quite sure who that was, but whoever it was is now out of the way, and that's going to compromise his final sector. After 2 sectors, he was almost 2 tenths down on Sebastian Buemi. Now through the final corner, which, interesting to hear, they're not really flat at all, and he goes 3rd quickest, about 4 tenths adrift of Buemi. So not a great lap that from Lotterer, but certainly, Dario, looked like some traffic towards the end, and Bird's shutting up shop. There we go.
It looks like the car is not actually there. It looks like the car might be in scrutineering, which is a good sign.
Yeah. But then why would Bird be closing the curtains?
I have no idea. The only thing I can think of is sometimes it's really difficult to see what's on screen, because if you've got too much, I mean, I have no idea.
No, but that might, because he then went back to look at the screen.
There's a lot of light coming in, and it is quite difficult to see the picture, so potentially just to block out some light, or maybe he just didn't want the nosy cameraman there.
Yeah, he didn't shut it enough to shut out the cameraman, though, did he?
Well, I don't think it worked.
Here comes Nick de Vries across the line now, and he goes to 2 tenths slower than Buemi. So all of a sudden, that lap from Buemi isn't looking too bad, although Edo Mortara has done a very quick first sector in the Venturi, the driver leading the championship, but his middle sector isn't quite as strong. And there is Sergio Sette Camera waiting to go out in the Dragon at the moment. As we get more and more full power laps coming in, you see the purple flash on the left-hand side, means they're in full power. Mortara comes across the line now, and he goes third quickest, less than a tenth of a second away from Sebastian Buemi. Jake Dennis is a quarter of a second down on Buemi in Sector 1. Here's Max Günther, who has ended up second quickest after he's already done his full power lap. That's his teammate Jake Dennis following him through Buttermilk Bend and then through the chicane down towards the final corner at Clinton Wharf. Dennis, after the middle sector, is 3/10 away. Comes across the line now, and it is 7th quickest for Jake Dennis, so slower than Lotterer. Nato is a 10th down on Buemi in Sector 1. Joel Eriksson is 2 seconds away after the middle sector, but maybe he's only just turned up to full power. Actually, that would make more sense. So here we go, Joel Eriksson in his second Formula E race, coming into the final quarter now. Qualified fairly impressively, I thought, in his first race. Only 3/10 adrift of his teammate, and now comes charging down into the first corner. Here he comes now, onto the brakes, into the left-hander. We'll see what the 23-year-old Swede can do. Turned 23, what, a week ago, I think? 28th of June, if I recall correctly.
Sounds about like a week ago, yeah.
Here's Mitch Evans in the Jaguar, following him through. Evans, 5th in the standings, level on points with Da Costa and Rast. And Eriksson moves out of the way, so I think that was Eriksson's fast lap. It just wasn't. 2.7 seconds slower, so big mistakes in sectors 1 and 2. Evans is 7/10 down in sector 1. Didn't see any major error from the Jaguar driver.
So could this be Sebastian Buemi back on top? Or is someone going to beat him to the top spot in this timings?
Well, his last win was here 20 races ago, as Mitch Evans comes through the hairpin, and we've still got some quick drivers to set lap times. Vern's doing okay in sector 1, as is Da Costa, but actually, Dario, that lap time from Buemi is kind of standing at the moment. It looked as though maybe he'd gone a bit early and it would get beaten, but people are going quicker in the odd sector here or there, but overall it looks like a reasonable lap.
Yeah, a very impressive lap from Sebastian Buemi, because the track is getting better with every lap. We've talked about the dust, but also look at the sector through turns 2, 3 and 4. There's new tarmac there, and it's really taken rubber, so the grip level is going to come up massively, especially through there. But generally the whole lap itself. So yeah, good job by Sebastian Buemi. Hopefully he can continue that into qualifying later on.
Yeah, Vern only goes 7th quickest. Da Costa may go quicker. He doesn't. He goes 12th quickest, in fact. Lost a second in the final sector, so a big error somewhere from Antonio Felix Da Costa. Oliver Rowland across the line goes 6th quickest, 2/10 slower than his teammate Buemi. Verline in the Porsche goes a bit in 9th. This is Alexander Sims, who is coming through the middle sector now, and he's about half a second adrift of Buemi, so he'll be lucky to get him into the top 10 here, Alexander Sims in the Mahindra. His teammate Alex Lynn has gone 13th quickest. Sims through the final corner, out across the line, and it is 17th for Alexander Sims on his full power lap. So 50 seconds left. Buemi might well top this. Evans is up behind Lynn. Lynn is finishing his full power lap now, Alex Lynn, actually. So does he jump up the order? No, he does. No, he might be starting his full power lap now, but whatever happens, he's locked up down into the first corner. Norman Nato is 5th quickest. And where is Robin Freitz? We just saw him out there. He went half a second slower than Buemi. So Buemi's done a very, very good lap there with 25 seconds left on the clock.
So it looks like, you know, that change that they did to Buemi's powertrain on the Saturday in Puebla may have paid off after all. Perhaps didn't bring home the points that they wanted in Puebla, but this is the time it's come into effect.
Nick Cassidy across the line in the Envision Virgin racing car. 15th quickest for Cassidy, 6/10 away from Sebastian Buemi. Sette Camera and Turvey, I think, might still be on laps, but the checkered flag is out, and so I can't see that Buemi time being beaten. Lynn is on a full power lap now then. He's coming through the middle sector, and he's 4/10 down after the middle sector than Alex Lynn, so that was him starting a flying lap, but he had that big lockup down into the first corner, didn't he? Really leaning the car through Clinton Wharf, the final corner, and Lynn improves to 12th quickest, and Evans across the line wasn't on a full power lap. Sete Camera has gone a 10th quicker than Buemi in Sector 1. We've seen some flashes of speed from the Brazilian throughout the year. Turvey is quite a way away and has come into the pits, actually, in fact. So he was on full power, he's coming to the pits. Sete Camera only 3/10 down after the middle sector, so he's got a shot at the top 10 here. You can see how tight the timings are on the tower on the left-hand side. Here comes Sergio Sete Camera, he's offline! Oh, he saved it!
Rescued at the last minute.
Goodness me! He's often in the wall in qualifying, Sete Camera. Not this time, and in the end, the lap time is not quick. That was a bit of a sketchy final corner there, Dario. Oh, here's his radio.
The car in one piece, man. Fuck!
Well, sorry for the language there, but Sergio Sete Camera, that was a close one, Dario.
Yeah, that was one of those ones. He had an accident, he just didn't know. I mean, that was incredible to keep the car at the wall. Once you hit those marbles on the outside of the corner, it's like hitting ice, and he did a fantastic job to stay out of the stay out of the wall. Let's watch. It looks good here. It looks good that, you know, everything's working well. Good steering inputs. Car's loaded nicely, front to rear. You look at the slide happening already, and as soon as it slides, yeah, just too much of a slide. Now he's into the marbles. Now it's a rescue mission from this point, and at that point you're just trying to keep out of the wall because you don't want to go back and talk to Jay Penske and tell him you've crashed his car again, or any team boss for that matter. But a great save from Sergio Sete Camera.
I don't know if Sam Bird's car, I don't think I think it's like out the back of the garage that they're building it up. We just had a shot of it a moment ago, but it almost feels like it's out the back of the garage because it's out the back, so they're having to wire it up and loom it and everything. So I think that's why it's not in its garage slot. I think it's out the back of the garage.
And time is ticking. It's only a couple of hours till we get qualifying underway.
Here's a look at some practice starts. Hannah says, I'm sorry, is Buttermilk Bend really its name? And if so, how and why did it get that? Well, it got that because I decided to call it that, but it's called that because...
You didn't pluck the word buttermilk out of nowhere, though.
It's next to the Buttermilk Channel, which separates, which is the stretch of water between Red Hook and Governor's Island. How it's called the Buttermilk Channel, no one knows. They think it's because they used to take milk across the crossing, but it was so rough there in that channel, it would all be churned up to butter by the time they got to Manhattan, is one of the stories. As we carry on with these practice starts, that's Lynn on the left-hand side and Vern on the right-hand side as the 5 lights go out. But Buemi quickest then, a 1 minute 9.386. Gunter second, Verline third, and you'd have to say, Nikki, no real running order, if you know what I mean. There's not an obvious, oh, they're the favourites.
No, but then I feel like that's the same in most weekends in Formula E. As we always say, this is so competitive, and you can see why. You know, you look up and down these 24 drivers. You've got former Formula 1 drivers, GP2, GP3 winners, Le Mans winners. It's quite unbelievable the calibre of the drivers that we've got here. So it's difficult to pick a favourite at the moment.
Well, here's a look at the results after free practice 2. Next up, it's going to be qualifying in just over an hour's time, and it's Sebastian Buemi who tops the timesheet. So 1 minute 9.386, looking for his first win since New York City in 20 races ago. Max Gunter second in the standings ahead of Pascal Wehrlein, and then you got a lot of Mercedes powertrains up there. Mortara, Nato, De Vries and Van Dorn all running the Mercedes powertrain from 4th all the way down to Van Dorn in 8th position. Robin Freint's quickest in free practice 1, but half a second off the pace here. 13th place for him. Tom Bromqvist in 16th. Da Costa in the DS Techeetah was looking quick, set the fastest middle sector of anyone, but lost 6/10 in the final sector. So whether that was an error or traffic, in fact, he had the 3rd slowest final sector of anyone in the field. So that's unfortunate, and no lap time for Sam Bird after he crashed in free practice 1. So next up, Dario, qualifying, and well, Buemi's looking in a good position because he'll be going out in the last group of qualifying. The track should be at its cleanest, and it looks like he's got pace.
Yeah, Buemi's definitely got pace, but you have to say so is Sete Camera, because I think if he'd have finished that lap, he'd have been looking pretty sweet. Norman Nato, he's looking like he could cause some hassle as well, but it's all about, I think, Group 1 the championship contenders right now, the first 6 in the championship going out first, how bad a condition's going to be, and how interesting is the race going to be in Group 1.
So Sandberg closed the curtains because they had to move the new chassis into the garage position. So the old chassis was out, so they were doing a swap, basically, which is why Sandberg closed the curtains there. Evans having a little chat with someone from the FIA there, back in the garage. But yeah,
I think it's going to be, you know, obviously Group 1 always throws up interesting things, but Group 2 is going to be really interesting. Well, should we go down and hear from Michael Andretti, who's here this weekend, and he's speaking to Amanda.
Well, it will be a home race for the BMW team here in New York City. And Michael, as you look over the first 2 practice sessions, what are your thoughts so far?
They're pretty happy, so we'll see. I don't think Jake got the best lap, but I think Max did a pretty good lap, you know, was second quick, so we'll see.
Is it hard for the drivers to perform with the big boss on site?
Hope not. Shouldn't be.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
I hope not. It's quite an ominous answer to that, isn't it? So, yeah.
I feel like having Michael Andretti in the garage is gonna bring some pressure. You know, what a name, racing for Andretti. BMW Andretti, of course, partnering up in the last couple of years, and it's been fantastic to see. It's gonna be really sad when BMW leaves the Formula E pit lane at the end of this season.
Max Günther then, one of the drivers, he and Jake Dennis, a little thumbs up and a wink because he ended that session pretty strongly, you have to say. Antonio Felix da Costa just doing his stretches before he got in the car ahead of the second free practice session for the New York City E-Prix. And after a shortened first practice session, thanks to Sam Bird's crash, it meant that there was a lot of work to do in free practice 2. Roland immediately getting out of the way. He didn't want to be on the dirty stuff, did he? Got out of the way of everybody. Nick Cassidy making his way around the circuit. Lucas de Grassi having a bit of a slide there at the dock loop. There was an apex there somewhere. Nigel Beresford, the team manager at DS Techeetah, on the radio. Some great slides again through Clinton Wharf, the left-hander of turn 14. Whoa, that's a huge one from Cassidy. How has he kept that one out of the wall? Goodness me. Jean-Eric Verne had a spin on the dusty stuff down at turn 1 as well. Oh, and is that Cassidy again? Yeah. Nick Cassidy having 2 spins then. Sebastian Buemi went out pretty early to go up to full power. This is on board with Max Günther in the BMW Andretti on the driver's eye. And then Alex Lynn had quite a big lockup at the start of his flying lap. Sergio Sede Camera almost put it in the wall at the very end of the session, but it was Sebastian Buemi who ended the session quickest. Right, make sure you join us for qualifying. It's going to be getting underway in just over an hour's time. It's going to be an absolutely fascinating session that could be crucial for the championship. Remember, the top 6 in the standings will be going out first of all on the dirty track, and it's going to be a really entertaining hour of action. We'll see you then.